Hello, what's up everyone? Today I bring you another audio lesson, this time about the future tense. So just get right into it. Remember, this is a material part of the material that I selected, okay? That I wrote, and it's actually my study program where you will get all the basic general notions of Spanish, and also, of course, as you will see here and in other videos, the idea is to give the student as much independence and tips, study tools, and many of that stuff to actually have resources, to help themselves when studying, because that obviously is necessary. Well, of course, just like in any class, any course, what we do is pretty much that same thing, okay? Little by little, escalating, okay? This is just pretty much the same that you will find in any course, school, academy, or whatever, okay? It's pretty much the same thing, okay? And also, of course, as I said, giving you tools, mostly perhaps the online tools. We're gonna mention that here, okay? Because with that you can do a lot, okay, to help yourself, and with resources, technological resources that we have nowadays, okay, with dictionaries and translators, context reference and many other things, okay. Then of course you can bring back your questions to class, whatever you want to ask, okay. Remember that it's just that not anything and everything can, possibly in principle be studied, under or by a formula aspect, okay. Also, it's not always recommended, and it's pretty much not done in that way, at least not 100% with everything, just everything and anything, yes, for many things, and it can be useful, but mostly I would say that a language, besides those formulas that you can have, in English, the same happens, for time tenses or whatever topic, reported speech, whatever, you do have a formula, but many times, since, like what I always say, a language is variable, and you can find differences, okay, among speakers. Many things are, accepted that maybe are not directly like in the standard or classical grammar formulas, but they're said, anyway. Sometimes, maybe you hear variants, and languages are just full of these things, okay. However, we do try and study, of course, the standard way of these things, okay, so that you can be as much as possible, in the middle, right in the middle of the most standard, precisely way, of the language. Okay, but without much further ado, we will talk about this material here. Okay, so future time tense, or future simple also we can call it, okay? Because then we will see future continuous, future perfect, okay? This would be actually just plain future, okay, or future simple. So here we just say future, all right? The future time tense is the one we use to talk about actions in the future. For that, we have two variants, okay, of future tense available in Spanish. In the first one, we use an auxiliary verb, which actually derives from ir, ir, okay, which means to go, okay. When we put this verb according to each pronoun, I, you, he, she, it, etc., it turns into voy, vas, va, vamos, or van, okay? This is gonna be the auxiliary verb, okay, for the first variant of future, okay, in Spanish. So you will use one of these extra words, okay, and then the main verb. We continue reading, depending on the person. Then also letter A, which connects the first part, voy, vas, vamos, etc., with the following part, which is the main verb. And the main verb in infinitive, okay? This means that you have here, this makes it more simple for this first variant, okay? If you don't remember, much about conjugation, if that part's not easy to you, although it's kind of necessary if you want to actually learn the language, but always you can find a way, to just get through, maybe in some conversations, you may have, mostly like in live, conversations that you may have, in person, you know what I mean? Like you have to, yeah, you may want to, get through or the situation and make yourself, be understood actually, and maybe you don't find the conjugation of what you want to say, and maybe you can, for those circumstances, you can use voy, vas, okay, this first variant and the infinitive, because it's gonna be easier to remember, okay? Since in Spanish, conjugation is one of the most difficult things, because it's one of the things that most vary, okay? So in that way, it's just, a suggestion, okay? A tip for, to make it easier. Okay, so it can be walk, talk, work, okay, whatever. Caminar, hablar, trabajar, would be in Spanish. Example, yo voy a ir al parque. Tú vas a ir al parque. Nosotros vamos a ir al parque. This means going to the park. Here we're still talking about the first variation with voy, vamos, etc. Okay. You can see the verb here is in infinitive. Okay, you have the extra verb, voy, vamos, vas, and the verb is always remains in infinitive. Okay, ir, okay. In this case, it may seem, like kind of like a redundance. Sometimes that happens in Spanish. There's an example. There are some examples where it seems like we are double mentioning, a word. I don't remember examples now, but it has to do with it, with going. Okay, if I remember, I will tell you later. Okay, like if you arrange to meet with someone and you say voy yendo. Okay, voy is that auxiliary, like we can see here, which has to do with going. Not necessarily always about distances, but also maybe of something you're gonna do, okay? not necessarily traveling, but it can be for traveling, okay? And voy, yo voy, voy yendo, okay? Like if you were gonna meet a friend, you know, and say, okay, voy yendo. Voy yendo would be like I am going, okay? But voy, again, is this auxiliary that has to do with going somewhere or going to do something, as you can see here. And yendo means going, okay? So it's like I go going or something like that, okay? So you can find this in Spanish, okay? But it's like just, you know, the things of the language that you know are proper, you know, to each language that maybe you know they had in any case, you know, to be explained, you know, by you know a native or something, you know. Probably English has some of these things too. I don't remember now. But anyway, so this first example has to do with the auxiliary and the main verb, okay, in infinitive. So you may spot some similarity with will and going to for this first variant, all right? Comparing it with English, because you add that auxiliary to the main verb, all right? Just as I was telling you. Also, we got another form for the future, which is without the auxiliary. But here, the verb changes, okay? The verb stays on its own, but it is conjugated. For example, chamar, call, to call, would be chamaré, chamarás, chamará, chamaron, etc. So the word changes at the end, as you can see. It is conjugated, but with no extra auxiliary verb. Example. Yo iré al parque. Tú irás al parque. Nosotros iremos al parque. Then we'll mention about regular and irregular verbs to know about the conjugation. Okay, that point is important. We're going to mention that later. Just two different ways of saying actually the same thing. No change in the meaning. By the way, take into account this always. Many times, time tenses are just a matter of preference, though sometimes they can be more convenient, maybe for specific actions, situations, time frames. But in general, it is well and perfectly understood. For example, this case of these two future variants, or simple past versus present perfect. To mention another example, I went, I've gone, pretty much the same. Okay, so what we mean is that there is practically no difference between the first variant, okay, of future we are seeing here and the second one. They're, you know, pretty much the same, okay. With this, okay, you know, specifications that they can be, you know, every once in a while, you know, as we said, depending on action, situation, context, whatever. But it's mostly, you know, pretty much the same thing most of the times. So here, take a look at these charts so you can see very clearly and organized how it works for every person and mode, affirmative, negative, question. These charts here are very useful, okay, though we're going to mention now that with online translators, you know, this kind of, you know, simplifies all the story, okay, of course, and also you would have any way to use them because, you know, you don't have a way of knowing, you know, how every verb is conjugated, okay? Firstly, you're gonna need the translation first of all, if you don't know much about Spanish, if you don't know many verbs, of course. But anyway, if you do know verbs, maybe you don't know all conjugations. Maybe you're not sure about all conjugations. So anyway, you're gonna need, okay, a online translator, okay? But these charts do give you, okay, you know, a look into the structure, okay, the basic foundational structure of any sentence, okay, of most sentences, okay, at least that contain somebody or something that performs an action, a time tense, as we can see here, a verb, okay, the action itself, what we're talking about, and then the modes: affirmative, negative, and question, okay? That is, you know, mostly what happens, the four most important things to take into account, okay, when we, you know, form a sentence, okay? Person, mode, time tense, and the verb, okay? Those four elements. The elements that you can see here, that's why we have this chart here, okay? So for example, you can see the first chart, okay? Both charts are with verb ir, okay? As we saw before. For example, yo voy a ir, that would be the affirmative variant. Yo no voy a ir, and that's a negative one. And the question one, yo voy a ir, notice the intonation too, where of course you'd probably want to take a look at that, okay? The intonations, okay, for each mode, mostly for question one. Tú vas a ir, tú no vas a ir, tú vas a ir, okay? And okay, so the same can be, you know, explained and practiced, you know, with any other verb, okay? So in this case, we already explained that this is the first variant, and you just add the auxiliary, voy, vas, vamos, etc., and the main verb. And for the negative, you just add a no at the beginning, and for the question mode, you see it's the same that the affirmative, just add a question mark at the end, okay? Then continuing, the second variation is where the word changes, okay? And we don't use an auxiliary, which is okay. I use the main verb by itself, but the conjugation is changed, okay? So for example, yo iré, tú irás, él, ella, eso irá. Okay, we go from, so you can see the verb is changing from ir. Okay, you can see that at the top left corner of the chart. The verb is ir, and it changes into iré, irás, irá, iremos. Okay, depending on the person. Yo again, yo iré, tú irás, él, ella, eso irá, nosotros iremos, ustedes irán, ellos, ellas irán. Okay, that's for the affirmative mode. All right. The negative, again, is just adding the no at the beginning. Very simple. Yo no iré, tú no irás, él, ella, eso no irá, nosotros no iremos. Okay, this, as we were talking before, here it's very, these charts are very useful, okay, for if you need it, these things as, formulas, all right? For example, knowing about the no, if you wanted to know, okay, but how the future is formed in the negative mode, okay, and you can refer to this chart and say, okay, I got the person, and then I got a no, okay. Anyway, this is explained, okay, later on here in this file, okay, that I'm sharing with you, okay, that is part of my study program, okay. So you're all covered, okay, here with this, okay. You have the tools and the references, okay. At least the starting from the basic things, okay. Then maybe you can ask another questions when you want to form a longer sentences, okay. But the very basics, which is something we can't present, okay. Person, verb, and conjugation and modes, okay. That's something. That's the base, okay, of talking. Okay, the same happens in English, okay. I also give English lessons, okay, and so again, it's pretty much the same thing. So it's very important that you try and have the notion of this, because actually there's just, so to say, there's not much more than this. I mean, this, to put it simply. Of course, there are many other things, okay? But it's like once you know this, the rest becomes more simple because it's just an addition to this. Same in English, okay? Then, of course, the word order, and that stuff, but once you have this again, it's kind of, this is like the hardest part, because it's the basic, sentence elements and structure, okay? Person, verb, and mode, okay? That's the foundation, okay? That's a foundation. And then the rest is kind of like an additional. Okay, the rest of the sentence, which again, of course, we need to know in any case, okay, maybe about word order or wherever, okay, that we would want to say in this or that situation, okay. We mentioned up to the negative mode, I think. Yo no iré, tú no irás, él, ella, eso no irá. Then we have the question mode. Yo iré, tú irás. Then, for example, here, the dots here could mean, the rest of the sentence. Of course, we know that we're meaning that, okay, and same for, of course, the affirmative and negative. We are mentioning this, okay? This is just the base of the sentence. Then you got, the rest of the sentence, all right?